They told us we couldn't have our gate, not in so many words, but in the way Clara Voss smiled when she walked up my driveway, like she already owned the afternoon, like the yard, the pool, the two rusted lounge chairs with the cracked umbrella were part of the neighborhood's communal props. I remember the first time I saw her that day, clipboard in hand, pearls clicking, and thinking, this is the exact face that will make you doubt your own address. That was the HOA woman who treats property like a buffet, and a quiet backyard that meant everything to me. My name is Ethan Rowe. The pool was our invisible muscle, not flashy, not fenced with expensive stone, just a patch of water my brother Alex and I repaired one summer. A place where our holidays and bad days evaporated the same way the chlorine did at dusk. To him, it was quiet therapy. To me, it was a ledger of family promises. The deck board I tightened with my grandfather's screwdriver, the sun-stained towel with our initials. It was private. It was ours. That's why Clara showing up with a community event stamped on glossy tickets felt like someone putting a for sale sign on our memory. Act 1 sprawls out in those first tense minutes. Clara announces an HOA gala is set for Saturday at noon, and apparently our backyard pool is the perfect venue for her VIPs. She stands there like she's offering us a compliment. Your backyard has such character. And beneath the compliment lies the threat: character for sale, privacy for public consumption. I tell her no. Alex tells her no, too, but in a quieter voice. She laughs like it's adorable that we think we get to decide. She hands me a laminated sheet, community priorities, the kind of bureaucratic velvet glove that fits right into power plays. I remember feeling stupidly hopeful that official sounding paper would back up the lawfulness of our ownership. It didn't. It was a policy drafted by people who confuse precedent with entitlement. The middle act, too, is where inertia turns into strategy. Clara doesn't stop at polite dismissal. She engineers permission. Flyers appear on our mailbox overnight. Cedar Hollow Gala exclusive access. A local influencer posts a photo of our gate as event teaser. People start asking neighbors about food trucks and portable bars. Phone calls we don't want become calendars on other people's phones. Clara's strengths are a social statecraft kind of cruelty. She layers plausible deniability with charm, then amplifies it with spectacle. If enough people accept the story becomes true. That's when I realized there are two options: surrender and become a footnote, or become the person who makes the footnote cry. We chose the second, because it's easier to act from what you love than from what you fear. The plan wasn't dramatic, no sabotage, no viral expose, just stubborn, legal, and terribly visible. I cataloged everything: deed copies, tax receipts, an old survey that showed the lot lines like a map back to my great-uncle's time. I wrote an email to the HOA board with polite but firm language. I posted a safety notice on the gate about pool maintenance and chemical treatment, small things that sound boring over a legal mic, but that matter when police and cameras are involved. She doctored an invitation list and sold a handful of VIP tickets to people who thought they were buying exclusivity, not trespassing. On Friday night, a friend tipped me off people were RSVPing, bringing coolers, making plans. I remember sitting on the deck under a single lamp with a beer in hand, Alex watching the pool like a sentinel, and wondering if the show would begin with applause or with a siren. Act 3 arrives the moment the first car turns onto our street on Saturday. It was almost cinematic: SUVs and sedans lined up like a parade with the wrong float. Clara arrived as if shepherding her flock of entitlement, a smile that could be sold as irrigation for her confidence. She reached ours as if to throw open the gate on behalf of a community that didn't know it was being stolen. I stepped forward and said the only things that had to be true. This is private property. You don't have a permit to use it. She responded with that cadence of people who never learned the word no from someone without a title. You're making this personal. I told her ownership isn't personal. It's legal. She said ownership is about community, then added, as if it were proof, we've always used shared spaces when necessary. That line, we've always used, is what made me think of everyone who ever confused convenience for right. It's the phrase that hides the grab. The crowd leaned in because power invites witnesses. That's when the police arrived. I had called them earlier, a measured call explaining a potential trespass and a crowd with purchased tickets on private property. The officer was young and slow to smile, and for the first time all afternoon, I felt like a grown man presenting his paperwork in a judge's antechamber. I handed over the deed, the survey, the email chain. The officer read, looked at Clara, and asked for a permit. Clara fumbled. Her pearls tightened. What breaks people who build empires on charisma is a small stack of paper that refuses to bend. The moment the officer asked, "Where's your permit?" the crowd shifted. The influencer who had posted a story deleted it quietly. Someone who had bought a ticket asked, "Are we okay?" And the phrase sounded like a crack in an illusion. Clara tried to charm her way out. That's when the power play collapsed from spectacle into accountability. Clara's exit was not a dramatic arrest. It was a scene of slow implosion. She tried to keep control to keep the narrative, but when your narrative depends on people's silence, a few raised questions are all it takes to unravel lace. She muttered about misunderstanding and community benefit, and I watched her walk away, head tilted, still performing indignation. But for the first time, she was not leading the movement. She was retreating from a crowd that no longer wanted to be on her side. Afterwards, everything felt like someone had closed a heavy door. We stayed by the pool until the sun washed the heat from the deck, both of us exhausted in ways that don't show in bruises. There was relief, a small, ordinary happiness. Alex made a joke about me becoming Captain Paperwork, which made me laugh until my stomach hurt. We hung a new sign on the gate that night. Private property, no events without owner consent. It wasn't a gloat, it was a bookmark. People who pass by will see it and maybe think nothing at all, and that's fine. The point is, we didn't hand over a thing that held history for us. But endings are never clean. Here's the cinematic kicker, the satisfying scene that slips into ambiguity. Clara resigned from the HOA board a few weeks later, amid a flurry of emails and a poorly thought-out apology posted on the community page. Some neighbors applauded. Others whispered that she was being forced out by people with more influence than they'd like to admit. The board convened. Promises were made about transparency, and for a while things looked tidy. Yet the next month, I found a comment on a neighborhood thread from someone who said, "She did what needed to be done. The community deserves to use nice spaces." I read it twice and felt that old dull ache of realizing that changing one person doesn't change the idea she represented. So the last image I want you to keep is not the police or the resignation. It's Alex sitting at the pool at dusk, sketchbook in lap, tracing the outline of the lily float we'd given up a decade ago. He's an adult now, I should have said that earlier, and he draws slow, like someone mapping places that keep him steady. I sit next to him, the night cool, and for once the water is quiet. The fight left marks, sure, but it didn't steal the place where we go back to breathe. If there's a moral here, it's not as tidy as victory or defeat. It's about the small, stubborn things worth protecting: the handshake with your past, the deck board you tightened with your grandfather's screwdriver, the right to say no when polite power wants to relocate your life. It's about documents and neighbors and the weird, bureaucratic ways justice shows up when you have the patience to stand in front of it. Now, and this is the part one always mess up in real life, but not in stories. I want you to think about what you would do. Was I right to escalate to police instead of trying to make a deal? Did Clara deserve the humiliation, or did that humiliation reveal a necessary reckoning about entitlement? Tell me which side of the line you fall on, and why. Share a time when you had to fight for a small, stubborn thing, and what you learned from it. If you think our story is unfair to one side or the other, say so. I'd rather have a messy conversation than a quiet acceptance. Comment below, hit share if something in this resonated, and tell someone you know that sometimes the most important battles are the ones fought over a backyard and a memory.